Healthcare. It's all about keeping people healthy. But healthcare also generates its own potentially unhealthy byproducts. 2.7 million tons of waste are generated each year in hospitals, clinics, and doctors' offices. Some of that waste is disposed as part of the ordinary municipal waste stream, but a portion, 15%, is regulated medical waste, which must be treated to destroy potential pathogens.
So people go to the hospital and they're treated, and then the waste is incinerated. We are concerned that this medical waste then is beginning to cause problems. It's actually a vicious circle. I've lived here now for 25 years. This is really home for me. I really like the rural aspect of the area.
Well, we started this organic farm a few years ago. Well, this looks like a good place to raise a farm. The water's pretty clean and the air's pretty clean. We're very interested in providing the most wholesome produce that we can for sale. We have totally eliminated sprays of any kind, pesticides, herbicides, and that's something that we do.
All kind of wildlife out here. We see deer, geese, and just about anything you want to see in a rural area. It's just an ideal place. It's quiet. But you know, when I bought the property, I began to see from that area over there some black smoke. And I said, I've got to check that out. What's going on?
Well, we saw the black smokestacks along the interstate, and we wondered what in the world that was, and so we started asking around.
We, like many other people in the area, just thought it was another textile company.
And I asked Elaine Chioso of the Haw River Assembly, what in the world's going on up there? And she said, oh yeah, that's that big medical waste burner. And we were like, you know, darn it.
The town of Haw River, North Carolina, is home to a commercial medical waste incinerator. It's one of 6 commercial medical waste incinerators owned by Stericycle, the largest medical waste management company in the U.S.
There are any number of people that once you raise an issue like this are going to have questions because, you know, they have certain problems.
No form of incineration is absolutely clean. This particular facility has emitted excessive amounts of mercury. We have learned from experts how very toxic mercury can be, especially to young mothers and young children.
That sort of just turned the light bulb on for me because my son has juvenile arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease.
In this area, we have a very high rate of asthma. We've had breast cancer and bladder cancer, and people have different respiratory diseases. When they've learned about this incinerator, it's made them very concerned that we don't need something like this making health conditions worse. The hardest people to work with, the people we have the hardest time trying to get to change, are the medical waste treatment companies.
We were told that this facility was set up for basically for North and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And we had information that showed they were actually pulling in medical waste from 18 states. But we didn't get in an argument about it there, and I didn't challenge him on that. I just asked one question. I said, do you get anything from Washington? He said, oh yeah, yeah, Maryland, a little bit.
Despite the best efforts of lawyers, engineers, and providers, it's really been wishful thinking that we could regulate away the harmful effects of incineration.
The assumption is that you have the pollution control technologies removing these pollutants from the air, but during bypass conditions, they actually could bypass those pollution control equipment. And often these happens during the transient parts of the operation, especially shortly after waste is fed, for example.
So, for instance, the North Salt Lake, Utah Stericycle incinerator had 33 emergency bypasses during 2003. That's 33 times that incinerator spewed pollution straight into the environment without going through any pollution controls.
I know that dioxins come out of the incinerator, and I know that mercury as well is a problem. Not knowing all the effects of that, but just in reading and the many problems that those things cause, I'm concerned.
The bottom line for incinerator communities is that there's mounting scientific evidence to back up their concerns about emissions.
In epidemiological studies that have been done in the last decade and a half, we have seen how people living closer and closer to incinerators have a significantly higher risk of different types of cancers.
It's poisoning the air that we breathe. It's poisoning the air that our children breathe.
The realization that any incineration is likely to lead to pollution makes incineration unacceptable and has led to increasing efforts by host communities to close incinerators.
I'm a nurse by training, and I knew from my own experience that we didn't know that incineration caused any problems. I thought that if I could red bag and burn all of our infectious waste, I was making my patients safer.
Well, that's been the ironic thing for us, to realize that here the healthcare providers who have at heart our best interest are doing this pretty mindlessly. Once they know that there are alternatives for the treatment of this waste, then they are enthusiastic about moving toward that.
Healthcare Without Harm is a coalition of healthcare providers, public health organizations, and hospitals that are working to reduce the environmental impacts of healthcare.
When Healthcare Without Harm started, there were approximately 6,000 medical waste incinerators in the United States, and now the best estimate is that there are around 110. That's a remarkable success, and it comes really from many healthcare institutions figuring out that instead of paying more money to upfit their incinerator, they could spend less money reducing their waste stream, saving money by recycling and reusing, and then disposing of the waste that was left without creating the problem of dioxin and mercury in the environment by using alternatives to incineration.
There are quite a lot of commercially available alternatives to incineration today.
They include the low-heat thermal systems such as autoclaves, advanced autoclaves, microwaves, and dry heating systems.
An autoclave is a means of steam treating medical waste, destroying the infectious qualities with heat but without using combustion.
Here we are in the waste management area. It's a very small area for processing over 2 million pounds of medical waste a year. But the waste all passes through here and into the autoclave room, where it's placed into one of the two autoclaves for redundancy. In the event that one were to go out of service, we still have a second autoclave so we can continue to operate.
And today you also have advanced autoclaves, which are specially designed autoclaves that include shredding, mixing, and maceration inside the autoclave. There are also microwave systems that exist that use industrial-sized microwaves to disinfect the medical waste. There are also some dry heat systems.
These alternatives are now commercially available, and in studies that I have conducted, they are often more cost-effective than incineration, especially if you take into account that the incineration has to have all these pollution control technologies, which are quite expensive.
A handful of states still require some waste to be incinerated. Our experts, like Jorge Emanuel, tell us that it's not technically necessary. So at Healthcare Without Harm, we're working with state regulators to change the rules and allow alternative technologies to be used for all medical waste.
Well, I saw in the paper See, that said incinerator tour eases concerns.
But it didn't. They didn't give us any information that relieved our concerns about what was actually being emitted in the atmosphere around us. Mm-hmm. And that's what we wanted to know from the very beginning. How much is being emitted? What can it do to us? Mm-hmm. That's all we want to know.
So we know that they've committed mercury violations. These violations were committed when they were doing a test. So now what happens the rest of the time when they're not being monitored?
And they're hauling in this waste from 18 states, and we don't like it. We're not trying to put them out of business, but we're trying to ask them to convert to a more friendly environmental method that they already have, but we don't have it here.
We also have to be really vigilant against new techniques that are used by industry. They're introducing these technologies like pyrolysis, gasification, plasma arc. These technologies heat the waste, then typically incinerate the waste gases. These technologies end up with the same kinds of problems as incineration, like dioxins going into the air.
With government officials continuing to allow incinerators to operate, despite questions about ongoing health hazards, neighbors of incinerators often turn to political or legal recourse to pressure the operators to convert to cleaner technologies.
People who take on medical waste incinerators live in cities, they live in rural areas, they come from all walks of life. They are business people, they are mothers with young children, they are grandmothers. They are mostly people who care about their health and the environment. A lot of people, including us, work on permits because all these incinerators operate under federal permits called Title V permits.
I'm involved in fighting the permit because I live 2 miles downwind of this incinerator. And even though the mercury and the dioxin and the chlorine and the hydrochloric acid, they travel for hundreds of miles, but still the major fallout is here in the immediate vicinity of Stericycle's incinerator. Yeah, the permit here allows Stericycle to emit 3.8 pounds of mercury every day. Now 1 gram of mercury will pollute a 20-acre lake. So you can imagine the amount of damage this does to the waterways here in North Carolina and the fisheries down on the coast.
I had this old tank laying around, and I use it to haul off gray water for my hand washing machine. And I thought, well, if I stuck some pipes onto it, mounted it to what we call the mulch mobile. It's a farm wagon that we pull around. There I was wheeling it out of the back of the truck, you know, and I wheeled it, believe it or not, I wheeled it right, and I had somebody help me carry it up the stairs, and we set it up on right next to the courthouse house building at the top of the stairs. It was so outrageous that even the police had to back off of it because it was like unapproachable or something.
St. Louis residents fought on many fronts, including passage of a local law toughening incinerator standards, as they won support from healthcare providers, including Washington University School of Medicine. Stericycle closed its incinerator there in 2002.
Another thing that we have done is we've even gone to the shareholder meeting to present our case to the shareholders of Stericycle. We've filed a shareholder resolution asking them to give their shareholders a plan, including a timeline for when they're going to phase out the rest of the incinerators in their system. The company tells us that they have a plan for phasing out incineration, but we need a timeline. The company has got to provide a timeline for everybody. It's especially important to our community that they do this. Hand them to the shareholders and they'll be real nice to you. But just let them know that it's still a problem. I'm taking this to the shareholders because shareholders have the power in a corporation, or they should. And shareholder resolutions get management's attention. This was really important to us. We feel that we have been ignored in the community. We've sent letters and we've had no response. I sent the shareholder resolution to management and heard nothing from them until it was going to be on the proxy. Had management contacted me, I might not be presenting a shareholder resolution to the shareholders at the annual meeting.
We asked Stericycle to participate in this video, but company officials declined. We wanted to ask them about their plans to end the use of incineration. From our discussions with Stericycle, we'd say that they're at best hedging their bets. While they've made good progress to eliminate some of their incinerators, they're currently keeping 6 commercial incinerators operating.
More and more community members are helping us. Once they learn exactly what's going on, they are outraged. We definitely plan to keep up the pressure.